We have left the cloud by DHH, the man with very little opinions. Since it took us years to get into the cloud in the first place, I originally imagined it would take us years to get out as well. But all that work to containerize our applications and prepare them for the cloud actually turned out to make it relatively easy to exit. And now, after 6 months of effort, it's done. We're out. The last application was brought home to our own hardware on Wednesday. Hallelujah. Wait, they're running their own stuff? Is that what we're reading here? Like literally like in-house servers? Wouldn't it be excessively easy to DDoS them then? Isn't that like part of the fun of not managing your own stuff is that you have Cloudflare don't get DDoSed? Okay. In those 6 months, we brought home 6 heritage services that we're no longer selling. What is that? What is a heritage service? But we have committed to supporting for existing customers and users until the end of the internet. Classic end of the internet. Basecamp Classic, High-Rise, Rightboard, Campfire, Backpack, and Tada list are all over a decade old, but continue to serve tens of thousands of people. There's dozens of us! And generate millions of dollars of revenue. Okay, that's pretty good. But now we'll be spending far less to operate them, and as a bonus to those users, provide a considerably faster experience due to the powerful new hardware. Okay. You know what would also be better? Stop writing Ruby. You know, just throwing that one out there. That might just provide a dramatically faster experience as well. But hey, but the big move was, hey, this is an application that was born in the cloud. We never run it on our own hardware before, and as a full-featured email service, it had a lot of moving parts. But the team pulled this off without a hitch by doing the move in several stages with different databases, cache servers, mail services, and app instances moving independently over the course of a few weeks. Our stack for bringing home all these applications is entirely open source. We use KVM to slice our new monster 192-thread Dell R765S into isolated VMs, then Docker to run the containerized applications, and finally manage remote server containers, spelt with a K, with Maersk, to do zero downtime app deploys and rollbacks. This setup helped us dodge the complexity of Kubernetes and avoid any sort of enterprise service contract entanglements. I wonder how much they're spending. I mean, real talk, I just have to think, when I hear the term tens of thousands of users, that's like 25,000 users. Okay? Because if you're above 50, you're going to say 50,000. If you're above 100, you're going to say hundreds of thousands. So I'm thinking like 25,000 users, okay? And so then I'm thinking 25,000 users. Why isn't that off of like 2 nano nodes and a database on Linode for like $40 a month? What's going on here? Why do you have this machine? What's this machine doing? How are you using all of that for that many people? Like, what the hell? I guess to be real, I don't know what Campfire, Backpack, Tada, Rightboard, High-Rise, and Basecamp Classic do. Okay, I don't quite know. But I would like to say that it does something that seems like it does a lot of things that it doesn't necessarily need to do. Okay, Beastco, what the hell is it? Primeagen, but that's just their legacy users. But that's just for their legacy. I know it's for their legacy users, Teach. I'm on your team. I'm just saying, how does it take this much compute power to run some legacy users? What are they doing? What is this thing doing? What does Campfire do that it requires this? It just seems kind of wild to me that 25,000 people require that much. The back of the napkin math is that we'll save $1.5 million per year. What are you doing by owning our own hardware rather than renting it from Amazon? Remember, I mean, you pay a different cost though. The engineering is definitely different. I guess it depends on how many engineering hours are used, right? And crucially, we've been able to do this without changing the size of the operation team at all. Okay. Running our application, I mean, it would be better if you could downscale your operation team, right? Your operation teams didn't need as many people, then you'd really have a win here. Running our application is in the cloud. Let's see. In the cloud just never provided the promised productivity gains to do with any smaller of a team anyway. I'm curious about this because there's a lot of questions, because once you run your own stuff, you also run into the next problem, which is when you want to hire somebody, there's like a whole scale-up thing, right? And the whole scale-up thing is real. And then, there's going to be new tasks, because right now your hardware is fantastic. You're running off what appears to be a single machine. at some point, things start breaking and you start having to hire people and stuff goes wrong and you start getting DDoSed and just shit hits the fan. Like, that's real. That's a real problem. This is possible because of the way we operate our own hardware actually isn't too dissimilar to how people use rental clouds like AWS. We buy new hardware from Dell, have it shipped directly to 2 data centers we use, and ask the white glove service hands at Deft to rack the new machines. Okay, then we see the new IP addresses pop up online and immediately put them to work with KVM, Docker, and Maersk. Okay, I mean, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, hopefully they have a lot of, backup and all that good stuff. The main difference here is that the lag time between needing new services and seeing them online. Yes, it is truly incredible that you can spin up 100 powerful machines in the cloud in just a few minutes, but you also pay dearly for this privilege. And we just don't have an unpredictable business as to warrant the premium. Given how much money we're saving owning our own hardware, we can afford to dramatically over-provision our server needs. And then when we need more, it will still only take a couple of weeks to show up. It's funny, they used a very hilarious term right here, which is the word need. Typically, the word need implies that you need it now. And then the word a couple of weeks to show up. I mean, it's just kind of a funny phrase. Like, we need it! When do we need it? In a couple of weeks! I hope you're very good at being ahead of the schedule. Look at it this way. We spent about $500,000 buying 2 pallets of servers from Dell, which are a combined 4,000 vCPUs and a butt-ass amount of gigabytes of RAM and a whole bunch of storage to our server capacity. Okay, I mean, that's a lot. This hardware is more than adequate to run all the heritage services we brought home. Yep, together with Hay, and give our Basecamp operations a hardware refresh. It was less than a third the cost of what we predicted we'll be saving every year. This hardware will be amortizing over 5 years. I mean, I totally get this argument. I'm on this team in some sense that there is a lot of value. You're just not paying for someone else's infrastructure. It's not like Amazon's easy. It's not like you just press a button and your application works. You still have to do all the infrastructuring. And when you do all the infrastructuring, it's not impossible to imagine that you've built it so that it's going to work without Amazon as well at this point. But at the exact same time, there's a lot of headaches. I guess Deft must make it a lot easier. I don't know anything about Deft, but okay, that's it. I mean, it's easy. It sounds neat that they have like a in-between hosting network, right? It's like host your own hardware, but you don't actually host your own hardware, and hey, we're hooked into the backbone. I mean, that's cool. No wonder that sharing our experience with the cloud exit has made a lot of companies think twice about the insane cloud rental bills they're incurring every month. Our collective cloud budget last year was $3.2 million, and this was incredibly optimized with long service commitments, scrupulous right sizing, and monitoring. They also use Ruby. So again, incredibly optimized, and Ruby. You know what I mean? Can we at least agree to that? Like, maybe it's not incredibly optimized. Maybe it's well optimized. Maybe it is incredibly optimized for Ruby. Totally buy that argument. Just without any specification, this seems kind of, I don't even believe it. DB is the bottleneck? Well, then if DB is the bottleneck, also very interesting. I wonder, what are they doing with the replications? Why is DB the bottleneck? Very curious. Hey, it was less than a third of the cost. Oh, yeah, we already read that. Blah, 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 blah. Our collective cloud budget was $3.2 million. We're incredibly optimized. Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of companies paying many times what we did for even less benefit. The potential savings are as large as the AWS quarterly results are staggering. AWS generated over $5 billion in profits for Amazon in just 2022 Q4. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They offer a whole bunch of tools, instant scaling, and a whole bunch of benefits that are impossible to get doing it yourself, right? So, I mean, that's why they make money. I get that. As I've mentioned before, I still think the cloud has a place for companies early enough in their life cycle that the spend is either immaterial or the risk that they won't be around in 24 months is high. Just be careful you don't look at those lavish cloud credits as a gift. It's a hook, and if you tie yourself too much to their proprietary management services or serverless offerings, you'll find it very difficult to escape once the bills start going to the moon. I agree with this take. It's one of my big hesitancies about serverless, which is that once you're serverless, it can be tricky, right? You've built an application. It's why I'm a bit hesitant about companies who build themselves, like when you build a product around a company and what they have to offer, there is danger in that. Now, it depends on the product. If if it's a very simple product that has you have a one-dimensional product that's offering a single thing to users, I could understand why you do that. Hey, it's easy. We know we're not going to overspend. That's just that. But as it grows, things can be kind of tricky if you don't have a single, Netflix would be impossible to do that. That's why cloud agnostic options like OpenFaaS exist. Yeah, I can see that. Is Netflix serverless? Netflix is not serverless. Yeah, this is obviously different than Theo's stream. Theo has much different opinions than me, but that's okay. That's the good part about being on the internet, is that you should most certainly listen to a bunch of different people's opinions. Even though I think this guy is a dummy, it doesn't matter. I can read what he has to say, and there's things that I can even agree with what he's saying. I don't think what he's saying is bad. I just think that it also can be very tricky, and it's not something, and I think he does a great job right here. Like, hey, if it's a new company, maybe you shouldn't worry about that part because you haven't grown to the point where you can actually go and get enough engineers to really consider this option. You know what I mean? And so, all right. I also think that there are probably some companies that have such high variance in their loads that renting makes sense. If you only need to plow thrice a year, love it. It doesn't make sense to keep the barn unused for the remaining 363 days. Yes. I mean, I don't think that's how barns and plowing works. Real talk, plowing, you don't get something to put in your barn after you plow, okay? Plowing is what you do before you put the stuff. Then you grow the stuff, and then you harvest the stuff, and you put it in a barn, and then it's this. I mean, it's a little different. Plowing is important, but plowing is not quite the right term here. But most established companies can amortize capital investments. You plow the barn, baby. You take that pound truck to Plowtown. Let's see. But most established companies can amortize capital investments over a few years, should seriously reconsider the cloud craze. The benefits have vastly overstated. The cloud is often just as complicated as running things yourself and is usually ridiculously more expensive. That I cannot qualify either direction, right? So that's the thing I don't know. I don't know what Deft is like when you're not a bigger company. What is that like? What are you going to get out of using Deft? What's their uptime? Do they have potential risks? At least the risks going into, say, AWS versus something else, right? So, I don't know. But I'm also not against what he is saying. So if the money matters, and when it does not, and when does it not? Agreed. I urge you to do your own math. Consider whether you have the services that really benefit from constantly scaling the capacity up and down. Then have a serious look at what your own cloud exit could look like. We pulled out 7 applications in 6 months. You can do it too. The tools are there. They're free. So don't just say in the cloud because of hype. Okay, it's actually not the worst article. I actually came into this thinking this is going to be a terrible article, just because I think I have, there's this whole thing about communication I just got done watching, which is like your view of a person can change how you interact with them. So imagine the situation that your wife, whoever, walks in and slams the door because a breeze came in and accidentally slammed the door for her. Now, if you have a really positive view of that person, you're going to be like, oh, what happened? But if you have a really negative view of the person, you're going to be like, don't slam the door. Why are you slamming the door? Right? And so you can hear and read what people say, and your reaction to what they have to say completely change how you feel about it, even if it's true or false, right? So we're gonna give him a semi-W. I'll give him a semi-W, a half W. Okay, I'm gonna give him a V. We're giving him a V. Can we get V's in the chat for DHH? We'll give him a V. I'm not willing to give him a full W yet, but we'll give him a V. Okay, can we do a V? Can we do some V's in chat? It's a half dub. Okay, it's a half dub. I'll give you a half dub because I don't think you're wrong, but I also am not sure if you're right. The article is a big W. I'm not sure if it's a big W, but it's certainly really good to think about these things. And I think people don't necessarily, no, V is not for victory. It's for half a W, okay? That's why it's called W. It stands for 2 V's. Duh. And do you know in French, if I'm not mistaken, it's W versus V? V being, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yes, I actually did want to read this one as well, right? right? I think there is a use case for on-prem, but 15K users doesn't seem like that. Yes, I agree. I agree with this too, right? Like, what is the use case? How big does your place have to be? Where does it make sense? I don't know. You know what I mean? Colocation is hard as well. Yes, very, very true. This is very, very true. Yes. And so that's another really good point, which is what happens if you need a bunch of different locations throughout the world? You know, it's very hard to self-host everywhere around the world. Very, very hard. The name is, I'm not sure what the exact answer should be, but you should be able to individually compare it for yourself and make sure that you have enough users and spend to be able to try out each thing's a gen.